This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week, talking about one of the foundational elements of your marketing strategy, and that's the actual message that you are putting out there. How are you coming across to your audience? What are you communicating about, like who you really are as a person, as an attorney, an accountant, a financial advisor, whatever it is that you're doing, and how is it exactly that your firm helps them? What kind of connection are you making? There are a lot of ways to do it, obviously, but I think there are only a few that are truly, really effective at creating those genuine connections with your audience. And so to help us and hopefully point us down the right path, we are joined by brand strategist Kate DiLeo. Thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show today.
Awesome. So before we jump in, why are you the person that we're talking to about all this week?
Okay, well, to give you the brief version, I am an accidental brand strategist. I fell into this line of work from a pure necessity coming out of a sales career in my early 20s, interestingly enough, where I learned the power of how to deliver a very simple and fast brand pitch in 15 to 20 seconds that enabled me to actually get more prospects to the table and actually exceed my quota. And so I'll tell you, the reason that I'm here today is because this has become my life's work. I've worked with over 300 brands globally, ranging from solopreneur with just an idea all the way to enterprise level companies, and helping them build a message that actually is going to enable them to get more of the right kind of prospects to the right table at the right time.
Awesome. And I think, I was looking at your website, you actually call yourself a brand pragmatist.
Yes.
Versus a brand strategist. I went with brand strategist because I think, I think people know what that is, but what is a brand pragmatist?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, it's so funny because can we just call it out that when you hear the words marketing and when you hear of brand, everyone goes, like that's so fluffy. That's just, I hate fluff. I hate it. I gotta be honest with you. I'm not a creative in the traditional sense. I'm a great creative writer and wordsmither. But like, for example, if you asked me for a logo, I'd give you a stick figure. My brain doesn't work that way.
Right.
But I'm a pragmatist because what I look at anytime I'm writing a brand is not how cool does it sound, but is this the right message that's going to authentically resonate with my target audience and actually enable me to seriously generate revenue? So I look at everything from a revenue generation standpoint. And I think that makes me really more of a pragmatist that say, let's get down to brass tacks. What do we need to say where to actually get the person to convert?
Yeah. And that actually a great segue into kind of the first thing I was going to ask you.
Sure.
You talk a lot about how branding is the path of least resistance to revenue, which to your point, that may surprise a lot of people because like you said, people hear the words branding and they're like, fluff. Okay. It's just my logo. It's just a tagline or whatever. That's just, it's boilerplate stuff. But why is that? Why do you believe that it's the path of least resistance?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So remember how I started my career in sales? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this quick bit of a nugget because what happened in my sales career was very interesting. I fell into this job out of pure necessity. I left academia. I had planned to do a PhD in anthropology, interestingly enough. And I left academia when the market crashed because I was like, I got to go get a job and pay off my debt. My Italian father was like, yes, please leave our house and pay off your debt. So I took a sales job and I realized that all of the complicated sales scripts they gave me and all of the complex strip marketing campaigns that they had me sign up my leads for, nothing was working. And I was going to be out of a job very quickly. And what I recognized though, in the process of experimenting with what am I saying to these people to get them to want to stay on the phone with me or want to connect through email, was that there's three big things. And by the way, I've spent the last 10 years proving this out based on buyer psychology. There's three things that your customer, your prospect needs to hear to want to care about your products and services and want to buy.
Yeah.
And that's your brand. And those three components of your brand are, number one, a tagline that says what you do. Number two, a value proposition statement that's kind of says, here's what we know your pain is, and here's how we solve that pain. And then number three, a set of differentiator statements, sometimes called like 3 uniques of your company, that just clearly like the 1, 2, 3 outline,
Yeah.
here's how we're better and different than the rest. So the reason I say this is at the end of the day, the job of your brand as the path of least resistance to revenue is supposed to tell people, this is what I do. This is how I solve your problem. This is how I'm different. And candidly, if we think about any conversation we've had with somebody, that's the stuff, isn't it? That's going to actually provoke them to go, okay, yep, you got me. How does this work? Tell me more about pricing. Tell me more about what this looks like to partner with you.
Yeah. And I want to back up for a second, because like I mentioned tagline in
Yeah.
that kind of build up to that question. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't believe in a good tagline, because I do. My initial point was like, I think people see taglines a lot of the times as just, okay, well, I can just throw out some words, and it doesn't
Right.
have to be, so like they end up going with something super generic, like fighting for your justice, or your legal
Right.
your legal solution. And it's like, that's not good enough.
Right. It's not enough. Like, I have to be honest with you. People go, well, what about tagline? Is tagline important? Absolutely. Listen, I'll be honest with you. Tagline is incredibly important. It's one of the core things that I teach my clients, that I build with my clients, right? But a tagline in and of itself, while it needs to be strong and answer the question of what you do in a very provocative way, a great tagline should get somebody to ask the question either internally or aloud, what do you mean by that? And it needs to be backed up by an equally provocative and profound value proposition statement that also explains to your prospect, yes, here's the heart pain that we solve for you. So I think that like the tendency when we think about writing a brand, especially if we are in service-based companies or we are a solo practitioner or whatever the case may be, right? I think the tendency is like, yeah, but Kate, I'm in a relationship business. Like, stop. Like, I don't need this fancy brand. I don't even do a ton of marketing tactics. I don't even do email. I don't even do. And I go, okay, let me ask you this. If you walk into a Zoom room with CEO Mastermind or you're at the Chamber of Commerce, what do you say when somebody asks you what you do?
Right.
Or do you say it 35 ways depending on the person you're talking to? Here's the thing about a tagline. Your tagline is supposed to answer the question of what do you do? I blank, I tagline, I build brands that win more work.
Yeah.
So I tell everybody, I'm like, listen, it's not going to stand on its own, but it is the most perfect response. That is the first line of defense for any conversation you're going to have.
Right. And I don't think it has to be like, some super hokey kind of, off the wall sort of thing where it's like, oh, hey, I'm John Smith. I'm your bulldog attorney. Like, you don't have to get that. You don't have to get that crazy with it.
I mean, you could, but no.
You could, but no. But like, to your point, like the tagline just has to explain how you help. And that's how, you make that connection with people. I don't know if you're familiar with the EOS model.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, so one of the components of that, and that's what we use here internally is the three uniques. And so that's, the three things that, your business does differently from your competitors. And so that sounds, so that's, kind of in the same line as your unique value propositions and stuff like that. So how do you help people come up with those things? Because I think a lot of times people just default to like, well, we have the best customer service. Oh, we have the lowest rates. And it's like, maybe, but those are also like, that's not super unique. So like, how do you help people come up with the things that truly do make their business unique?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'll answer it in two parts. It's such a great question, right? So if we think about the process of how do you actually come up with those and write those, your three uniques, or what I call differentiator statements, same thing. Okay.
Right.
Number one, I think what's really important to remember is that in the process of writing your brand, your tendency, if you're an analytical person or a data person, which a lot of us are, we're going to say, well, I need to gather all of this competitor feedback and data and have 16 pages of reporting that tells me exactly how, what my competitors are saying and doing. And I go, here's the thing. As much as we care about your competitors to an extent because they're doing something in the marketplace, I care more about you. And so it's interesting. Number one rule, I actually scrapped 2 pages of my brand playbook that used to have all these questions about my competitors. I don't ask a single question about competitors in my process now. Yeah. What I instead do is the following. Number one, I need to understand Why are you in this business and what problem do you think you're solving?
Yeah.
Number two, who are you really going after and why? To create differentiators that really stand out, you have to first know, who am I targeting and what do they care about?
Yeah.
For example, if customer service is not something that your target audience cares about, why would you put it out there? It's also what we call table stakes language. Everybody says it. Our people are so different and amazing. I'm like, that's great, Bob, but everybody says that, right?
Yeah.
When you look at differentiators, what you're trying to do is compare typically the process. You have a different process that's proprietary, very streamlined. Things that you want to be thinking about are, do you take other way to say that? Do you have a different comprehensive approach?
Mhm.
What about timeliness and how fast your project is? If you are really good at turning around something faster than the competitors, call that out, because that's what
Yeah.
people are paying for, right?
Yeah.
Other things could include, if you educate your clients, so you're not just an order taker, but you look at things from the lens of you're educating and inspiring and teaching. That is different. So you really want to think about the experience that your client goes through and what are a few big nuggets that they're going to get by working with you versus the competition. That is often where you get the best differentiators.
Yeah. So essentially it's looking inward and really, exemplifying the strengths that you have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is.
And what's great about that, we had an episode a few weeks ago with Clifton Strengths coach.
Yes.
And yeah,
Yes.
so you're familiar with Clifton Strengths. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like it almost sounds like if you haven't taken that assessment yet to really learn about yourself, you can almost use your strengths and look
Yes.
at the strengths that show up there as kind of a jumping off point, especially if you have no idea where to start. So like for me, for example, like my number one strength on there was context. And so if I'm trying to come up with a unique differentiator for something that I'm doing, maybe I say something like, I look at all sides, I understand past patterns, and I can come up with a unique solution based on all that kind of stuff. And that's just brainstorming off the top of my head, and you could probably wordsmith it a little bit better. But maybe something like that is a good tool that people can use if they really just have no idea where to start.
Okay, so I love that you bring this up because it's very interesting, because I talk a lot about that. I'm a firm believer in StrengthsFinder. I also have done DISC assessment, and then
Mhm.
Colby
Yes.
assessments are all phenomenal. And I
Yeah.
really think that for many of us as entrepreneurs, we know this, like the more that we learn about ourselves and understand what makes us great, the better that we're able to help our clients. And I think that we all get in business in one way, shape, or form to not just make a pretty penny or at least support our families, but we want to help. There's clearly a reason that we love doing what we do. Okay. So you got to kind of figure out, what is that thing and what are my strengths and how do I pull those to the front? So it's interesting you bring this up, because if I were to pull my strengths finders, are you ready for this? My top 5: achiever, activator, communication, competition, strategic.
Mm.
All right. You ready? If you go to my website, what are my differentiators? Singular focus, transparency, fast process, actionable tactics, and educational approach. Funny how those line up.
Right. Yeah.
Really funny how, by understanding the way that I'm naturally strong, what I recognized in hindsight was, oh my gosh, the way that I deliver my work actually leverages those beautifully.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think you're
Yeah.
spot on. The hard part is, I'll be honest, for many entrepreneurs that I work with, maybe you see this too, sometimes we really struggle to come up with differentiators in our brand because we have this fear that if we call out how great we are, we're going to sound like a pretentious jerk.
Yeah.
And I think, listen, and I live in the Midwest, okay? Land of passive aggressive, land of, I'm in Minnesota, Minnesota nice. Heaven forbid you come in
Right.
and say, I'm great at something. They're going to go, oh, how dare she, right? But you
Yeah.
know what? Your clients and your prospects do want to know that. And if there's any place in your world where you just need to call out with humble confidence that you're really good at something, it's in your brand, right front and center with your 3 uniques or your
Yeah.
differentiators.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we live in this environment right now where people want to work with experts. They
They
want
do.
to work with people who not only have the ability to do something, but they have the confidence that they're going to do it well. And that really shows through in your marketing message, and people are savvy enough that they can pick up on that.
That's right. That is exactly right.
Yeah. So I want to make sure I cover all the bases here. So I know you do talk a lot about a brand trifecta. These are the things that are involved in that, correct?
That is correct. The three
Yeah.
things in your brand trifecta. So if you're listening to this today, you're like, what the heck do I need to write? Okay. I love talking about this because this should be very tactical. This is a formula. A plus B plus C equals outcome. If you like a formula and you're on this call, you're like, yay, I'm listening to the right episode. Okay. Remember, this is based on buyer psychology. Brand trifecta. A is your tagline that answers the question, what you do. B is a value proposition statement that follows that up.
Yeah.
And clearly says, here's how I solve your very specific heart pain.
Yep.
C is a set of your three uniques or differentiators. By the way, if you have 4 or 5 main differentiators, it's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
I have 5. All right. Most people, it's between 3 and 4 is what I find.
Yeah.
But that's the core stuff that actually brings your person to a point where they're actually going, oh my gosh, I get it. This makes total sense. Got it, Bob. So how does that work? What does that look like? How do you work with me? What's the cost? So what the job of your brand is to bring that person to the point of conversion.
Yeah.
And the conversion point is where they're asking the deep question of, got it. Now tell me the tactics and the pricing and the packaging and all the things that you've got.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is until you tell somebody what you do, how you solve their problem and how you're different, your prospect and customer don't care yet about your services. They're not there yet mentally. And that's actually okay. All we're trying to do is get them there in 15 to 30 seconds.
Right. Yeah. And that's, and that's kind of where we as a marketing company as a whole, focus in on our success because, I think a lot of firm owners, they focus on the cold lead generation. So they get the people in, they have a brand in place, how refined it is, how, in-depth and accurate is up for debate. And that's where someone like you can help them, really, really drill down on that. But then if you're not continuing to nurture them and continuing to educate and continuing to hit them with that message,
that's right.
They're going to forget you and they're going to go somewhere else, typically someone who just got their attention first.
Oh my gosh, completely. Well, what's interesting is, and first off, I'm in B2B services, right? And a lot of my clients do fall in that B2B service space. What's really fascinating is, again, the tendency is to say, well, I'm in the relationship business, so I really need to market. And I think the big thing is this, the question that I have people ask is, if you defined your ideal target audiences, what rooms are those people already showing up in, digitally or in person? Are they at Chambers of Commerce? Good. Go show up and deliver your brand pitch. Are they in a Zoom room for a CEO mastermind? Good. Show up, deliver your brand pitch. And if they're on LinkedIn, good. Show up, deliver your message. And if they happen to read blogs and articles, great. Show up, deliver your message. There's no bad marketing tactic. I think the question and I know you guys help your clients with this, is more ascertaining what are the 1 or 2 or 3 levers that make the most sense for us to pull. And let's get really good at using those and delivering that brand pitch at a top level, and then supporting content that shows expertise and thought leadership so that you're building trust. But yeah, if your client's not on Facebook, don't show up on Facebook. But if they're in certain places, be there.
Right.
Be there.
Yeah. And, one of the things I keep thinking about, you talk about, people saying that they're in this relationship business, and it's like, what kind of relationships have you been in? Because it's very one-sided.
Yeah.
It's just, hey, give me money.
Yes.
And that's it. It's very one-sided. You're not, it's give me money and I'll do work for you. It's not, there's not really a two-way street where it's like, here's some value, here's some information, here's ways that I can help you. If you would like to hire me to do some services for you, great. We would love to do that and carry you through before, during, and even after. That's right. To me, that's where the real relationship is, not just that transactional, you pay me and I'll get it done.
That's right. I think you're spot on. And it's funny because you talk about making it all about you.
Mhm.
I think the fear with marketing is that we make it all about us. And I think that there is certainly, when marketing is done correctly, it leverages a strong brand that focuses on what the prospect needs and the customer
Yeah.
needs, right?
Yeah.
You take that brand, you then help disseminate that through your content. So you're still speaking to, with a white paper, a blog post of, hey, if you're having this problem, here's how you can solve it. And they go, wow, this person's really smart. And they gave me something practical I can do. I love that. So yeah, you don't make it all about you. It's funny because I have a book coming out this summer called Muting the Megaphone. And the whole precipice of this is to stop telling stories and start having conversations. I think we are in an age, especially post-COVID, of like megaphone marketing. Everybody is shouting at you. And if you've ever been on the other side of that, you're like, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
think what you're getting at is you can have a really powerful brand and marketing pitch that actually creates a trusted conversation
Yeah.
with your prospects and your target audiences. And that's the goal. It's not to overwhelm them. It's not to do every tactic in the world. It's to be surgical based on your brand's infrastructure of who are we? What problem do we solve? Who are we going after? Let's go talk to those people.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. And, to me, the second part of that is to keep doing it. Like, it's not, you can't
Yes.
just do it once and
Yeah.
expect people to remember you forever. Even if you do think you're the greatest lawyer, accountant, financial advisor, whatever you're doing, whether you think you're the greatest person in the world, you're still so easy to be forgotten. Because you talked about it, the megaphone marketing, I talk about this all the time, where everyone is just so bombarded
Oh my
with
gosh.
all kinds of content and all kinds of messaging on a daily basis. It's like, hey, Taco Bell's got a new food item that you definitely have to try. Oh, Bud Light just came out with a new seltzer. Oh, there's a new show on
Yes.
Netflix. Oh, there's a new clothing line coming out. It's just constant pinging for your attention
Oh my
all the time.
gosh.
And so, you just have to keep reiterating and repeating it.
You do. And I think it's important to remember too that, I have this belief that like nobody wants to be in a sales funnel, but
Right.
everybody really wants to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
So how can you make sure that with your content marketing, for example, supporting that ongoing customer journey, right?
Yeah.
If you start with a great brand, build your content in such a way that there are touch points, that there are really natural milestones and touch points for people to want to connect with you. And so what that often looks like is a beautiful blend of face-to-face or interaction type of stuff with maybe more passive content that somebody can read or experience on their own. So yeah, put out some great videos, but do you have like a monthly cool networking thing that you do? Or are you teaching a really cool workshop coming up where they can hop in the room and see you face to face? Do you have an opportunity
Yeah.
for them to win a free consult with you?
Yeah.
I always love blending the approach between digital tactics. And again, is there a place where I can show up and meet humans? Is it teaching through an accelerator program? I do that a lot, totally for
Yeah.
free. And then I give people the opportunity to book an office hour with me. Gosh, that eventually turns into some amazing clients. But I showed up and I gave. And I
Yeah.
showed up and I met people as people. I think it's really about finding ways that digital supports interaction and interaction supports digital.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Let them work together. Don't feel like you have to do one or the other. It's really about a blended strategy.
Yeah. So that kind of leads us into one of the next things I wanted to ask you about. So we know what it looks like.
Yeah.
Right. We're on the same page as what it looks like. But what is it? What's it supposed to sound like or read like if it's on, on text, So like,
Oh my gosh.
what
Yeah.
tips do you have for
Okay.
people in that regard when they should be considering the tone and the voice of the message that they're putting out?
Oh my gosh. Can I tell you? Okay. So I personally do 3 exercises with my clients, but I'm going to give you my favorite one.
Okay.
It's the easiest thing for people to get their arms around. Okay. Here's the question you're going to ask yourself. Now, by the way, even if you are a solopreneur, I want you to think about this for a second. Technically speaking, as a solopreneur, unless you have what we call a personal brand, like I do, where it's katedileo.com, you may still have a corporate brand. It could be XYZ, attorneys. And eventually you're building a team. Maybe you have an assistant. So do you have a corporate brand or personal brand? Here's the question I want you to ask. If your brand were a person, who would it be? Now, As you answer this question, the tendency is going to be, oh, I'm kind, I'm funny, I'm smart, I'm really caring, I love to build trust. Okay, cool. And I want you to actually think about this from the perspective of a celebrity or public figure or a favorite movie character. I
Right.
want you to think about how they sound and talk. I have written Oprah brands, Morgan Freeman, Ryan Reynolds brands, self-deprecating humor, very wry sentences.
Right.
I've written Kevin Hart brands, super short, super like funny, boom, 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 mic drop, mic drop, mic drop. So how does that work? Well, how that translates into language when you're writing this is here's what you need to know. When you start to write, you guys, your tendency is going to be to write these huge, long, boring corporate sentences to get the concept down. I do the same thing with my clients. And then I go, don't worry, we're going to tighten it up. We're going to shorten it. How that works is if I go, how would Kevin Hart say that?
Yeah.
And then I realize he would just say this little bit and he wouldn't make it so corporate-y. He would just say that. Oh, well, that's only 5 words. And that sounds way more in layman's terms that in my audience is going to get that. Got it. So you want to use a celebrity or public figure to then go in and use that tone of voice to change the rhythm and maybe the sentence structure so that it feels as sharp and as crisp as it's supposed to be.
Yeah. No,
Does that help?
Oh, that's so brilliant. Yeah. And, like I'm sitting here trying to think like how we would do it, as Spotlight branding. Like I know me personally, like just for my own stuff, like on the side, like as soon as you started talking about celebrities and movie characters and all that, I immediately went to Deadpool.
Yeah.
Because that feels like me in my personal work, but like in Spotlight branding, like we've developed this voice, we've developed this style. I don't know who I would equate it to off the top of my head. I think if we talked about it for a while, internally, we would figure something out. But like, I think that's absolutely brilliant and a great way to, kind of detach yourself from your own work and the own things that you've built to kind of see how other people see you, or at least how you would want other people to see you.
That's right. That is exactly right. I think what's important to remember too is even if you are the brand, using this exercise helps you figure out how to write it in a way that still feels authentic to you, but avoids the potential pitfalls of writing this in a way where you start to go, oh no, that's going to sound to this, or oh no, that's going to stay very true to who you choose as your tone of voice. I have a friend of mine who has a portfolio of companies, and Ryan Reynolds is his brand. Now, interestingly enough, one of the products is very much Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool. One of them is Ryan Reynolds in Mint Mobile.
Okay.
Difference.
Yeah.
Big difference. One of them is like very freaking snarky and like boom, but you know what? It is this really cool like NFT product and it just made sense. Right. And then we've got this other more SaaS-based product that he was building and he's selling into CEOs and heads of sales. And that one was a bit more Mint Mobile Ryan Reynolds, a slight drier tone. He's like, yeah, I can't come out guns blazing, but what I've found is whenever I'm in the room having conversations with people, I have this gentle sense of humor that's a bit self-deprecating and people love it and they resonate. So part of this is actually thinking to yourself, what do people love about the way that I talk with them anyway? Right. Where am I finding that if I show up in this way, I close the deal? Or versus if I show up in this way, I'm not making the connection, something's off.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And kind of the other element to that as kind of we try to wrap up here a little bit. So we know what it sounds like. All right. Yep. And now it's all the kind of, I think putting it all together is just how it's presented.
That's right.
And so us, we believe big in the power of stories. We're big fans of Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I think, if your marketing and your message and everything is built around stories, I think it is really impactful. Problem is that it's all about the kinds of stories that you're telling. And I don't think you can really tell the right stories if you're not listening to your audience and figuring out what's most important to them. So how how does someone kind of make that shift to start having those kinds of conversations with their audience to then figure out what's important to them in order to tell those stories?
Oh my gosh. So first off, I love that you call out Donald Miller and Story Brand. I'm going to be super blunt with you. You ready?
Yeah.
I think what he did with trying to help us get our arms around making the customer the hero of the story and of the journey is fabulous. Here's the thing though. A lot of us took that concept, for better or worse, and we ran with it. And then we started doing megaphone marketing, stories that are just these long one-way monologues. The issue that I have with storytelling in a traditional sense is that if you write a brand that is a story, it is a monologue. Where do you give your prospect an opportunity to respond?
Yeah.
The way that I teach brand is certainly you're painting a story, but the way that you do that is through breaking up that narrative into these three clear components of tagline, value proposition statement, differentiator statements, and you physically break them up on the page. You physically say them separately. You're going to allow room and space and pause for that person to ask the next question subliminally, like, well, what do they mean by that? Well, hold on, tell me more. Well, hey, wait a second. Are they like everybody else I know? The thing is that when you allow space physically, when you write these, and if you're delivering this pitch, instead of it being this one run-on thing, what you've actually done is you've created a conversation with your prospect. They start responding. They keep reading. They're provoked to go to the next layer. Story is amazing. Always keep in mind how you layer that and write that on a website, in an elevator pitch, in your advertising, whatever it may be. Give it space, give it room to breathe, and ensure that you're not just going, but that you actually have allowed pause points as if I were sitting across from Bob. And as I said, my tagline, Bob had a chance to respond.
Yeah.
And then I give him the value prop. And then he asks the next thing. I guarantee you, if you can do that when you're writing your brand, you will see a big shift in people's ability to click to convert, because you've given them an opportunity to really mentally go down the buyer journey in their mind.
Yeah, it's very similar to just kind of how people are taught to write engaging marketing messages and stuff like that. It's like, well, what's the goal of the first sentence? To make them read the next sentence, and so on and so forth. And to your point, making sure that you give yourself time to pause and step back and let them digest a little bit first. Well, then, we also talk about, good marketing repels people.
Yes.
It's a good opportunity to give people the opportunity to weed themselves out if they need to.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Self-selection.
Yes.
Like attracts like. Guess what? When you stick to your guns and your brand and it's authentic to who you are, you're going to find the right person that totally goes, oh my God, I love this. And guess what? How much more fun is it to work with clients that actually love what you do and resonate with your message? I have this firm belief. You are not in the business of convincing. You are in the business of converting. Yeah. It is not your brand's job or your job to convince people who are not right for you to want to work with you. It is your job to deliver a really awesome pitch that's true to who you are and convert the ones that go, oh my God, tell me more. Right. And if you just do a good job at that, you'll find that your revenue goes up because you're converting a higher quality prospect every single time.
Yeah. And we can get into a whole big discussion about like
you and I can
how much you even
that.
charge for this.
Yes.
And all of that. And so, but we can save that for another time.
Totally.
Wanted to ask you, you mentioned you have a book coming out. By the time this episode comes out, this book will be released. It'll be live.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that and where people can find it.
Amazing. Thank you, by the way. So my book is called Muting the Megaphone. Stop telling stories and start having conversations. And really that book coming out in July of 2022. It is really the how-to guide of my actual proprietary approach of how to write a brand. So great. You've made a decision. You want the customer at the heart of your story. You know that you want to build this sucker. How do you write it? This book is tactical. It's only 100 pages. It is boom, 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 boom. How do you write it? How do you implement it? So you can find more information about this book on my website, which is www.katedileo.com. And listen, it's $15 and it's really supposed to be a pocket brand guide. Small but mighty.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, this has been really great. I think
Thank you.
we got a lot of really good insight and perspective there. I do have one final question for you.
Yeah.
It's one that we ask all of our guests here on Center Stage, and that is, if you had one final piece of advice for our listeners, what would it be?
You need to own it. Own who you are. Own who you are and do not be afraid of that, and allow your brand to be that stamp of confidence. You absolutely can stand in humble confidence without being pretentious, and allow your brand to be that. And if you do a great job at that, people will come.
Yeah, love it. I definitely agree. Yeah, I don't even think I could say anything else to put an end on that. But otherwise, that's going to do it for us this week. I mean, I think we got to end on that. So
Thank you.
Continue to give us those ratings and reviews wherever you're consuming the show. We're all over the place. YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, obviously Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of it. Thank you for all of the continued feedback and all of the great engagement that you guys are putting out there. But that's it. Kate, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.